This is not just another election problem. This is the total collapse of the Democrat Party. Trump saw it coming, and now even their own voters are turning against them. How bad is it? Watch until the end. If you are ready to hear how the Democrat Party is falling apart before our eyes, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell us, where are you watching from? The stadium is packed. People stand shoulder to shoulder, waving American flags, their voices merging into a deafening roar. Camera lights flash from every direction. The energy is electric, almost overwhelming. The sound of thousands chanting, "USA! USA!" shakes the ground. Reporters in the press gallery whisper to each other, eyes locked on the stage, waiting for what is about to come next. Then, from behind the curtain, Trump steps out. The crowd erupts. He walks to the podium, adjusts the mic, then pauses. He does not rush. He takes a moment, looking out at the sea of supporters, nodding as if to say, "I hear you." Then, in a slow, firm voice, he speaks. "I have one thing to tell you tonight. It is over for the Democrats. The total collapse is here." The crowd explodes. People throw their fists in the air, chanting louder than before. "USA! USA!" echoes across the stadium like thunder. The cameras zoom in, capturing every expression, every moment. The press gallery is in chaos. CNN reporters scramble to take notes. MSNBC analysts are already shaking their heads, preparing to call this misinformation before he even finishes. Trump waits for the noise to settle, his hands resting on the podium. He leans in slightly, his voice dropping just enough to pull the crowd in closer. "Let's break this down, because what is happening right now is bigger than any election. This is not just politics. This is the complete collapse of the Democrat Party." Another pause. He looks directly at the cameras, his next words cutting through the air like a blade. And the best part? They did it to themselves. Trump grips the podium, his eyes scanning the crowd. The chants die down, but the energy remains. He leans forward slightly, his voice steady and sharp. "The biggest problem for the Democrats is not me. It is their own voters leaving in droves." A ripple of applause spreads through the audience. Some nod, others clap, but everyone is listening. He lets the words sink in before continuing. "For years, they have taken voters for granted. They assumed that Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, and working-class Americans would always vote for them. No matter how bad things got, no matter how much they failed, they thought they owned those votes." He shakes his head. "But guess what? People are waking up. They see the truth. And now? They are walking away." The crowd roars in approval. Trump lifts a hand, signaling them to listen. "Look at the numbers. Hispanic support for me has doubled since 2020. Black support is higher than any Republican has seen in decades. Why? Because these communities are tired of being used. They are sick of the lies. Democrats promised them jobs, safety, and prosperity. What did they get instead? Skyrocketing crime, failing schools, and prices so high they can barely afford. Groceries." He gestures toward the cameras, his expression turning serious. "And it is not just minorities. It is the working class, the middle class, the people who built this country with their hands. They are looking at their paychecks, their savings, and asking, 'What happened?' A few people in the front row shout, 'Biden happened!' Trump smirks. "Exactly. When I was in office, wages were rising, gas was cheap, and families were thriving. Under Biden, inflation is crushing people. They are working longer hours just to afford the basics. They are paying double for gas, triple for groceries. And when they ask the Democrats what they are doing about it, they get nothing but excuses." The crowd murmurs in agreement. Trump lets out a short chuckle, shaking his head. But here is the best part. Even young people who were supposed to be Biden's strongest supporters are tuning out. They see his weakness. They know he is not a leader. They see their future slipping away under his failed economy. And you know what? They are done with it. He pauses, a smirk forming as he leans closer to the mic. "You know it is bad when even California voters are saying, 'Hey, maybe this Trump guy is not so bad after all.'" The crowd erupts with, Laughter and applause. Some shake their heads as if they cannot believe it. In the press section, reporters shift in their seats, flipping through their notes, scrambling to come up with a response. They know the polling data backs him up. They know the shift is real, but they cannot say it. Not yet. Trump straightens, his voice cutting through the noise. The truth is simple. The Democrats are losing their own voters, and once they are gone, they are never coming back. Trump rests his hands on the podium, looking over the crowd. The energy is still high, but now they are waiting. He leans in slightly, lowering his voice just enough to draw them in. The media keeps saying, "Oh, but Biden is leading. Trump cannot win." He pauses, shaking his head with a slight smirk. Really? Then why is Joe Biden polling lower than any president in modern history? The crowd erupts. Some laugh, others clap, but everyone knows he is right. He raises a hand, signaling for silence. Let me give you the facts. His approval rating is below 35%. That is worse than Jimmy Carter, and we all know how that turned out. You want to talk about numbers? Let us talk about swing states. Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, all moving toward us. The people who put him in office are abandoning him. A few voices in the crowd shout, "Let's go, Trump!" He nods as if he expected it. And here is the part the media does not want to talk about. Young people, his so-called strongest supporters, are done with him. They are watching prices go up, rent go through the roof, and what does Biden tell them? The economy is strong. He lets out a small laugh, shaking his head. Strong for who? Not for them. Not for the people working 2 jobs just to afford groceries. Not for the families choosing between gas and dinner. The crowd murmurs, some shaking their heads in frustration. Trump turns toward the press section, eyes locking on the cameras. You know how bad it is? Even CNN had to admit it. You see, when they start talking about Biden's approval numbers, they suddenly cut to commercial. It is amazing. 1 second they are saying, Biden is doing great, and the next, the screen goes black. Laughter spreads through the stadium. Trump chuckles, then leans back into the microphone. And over on MSNBC, the strategists are sitting there looking at the numbers saying, we may have a problem. The crowd roars. He lets it roll for a moment, then continues. But here is my favorite part. Biden's approval rating is so bad, even his own teleprompter is thinking about switching sides. The stadium explodes with laughter. Some people are clapping, others shaking their heads, but all of them are listening. Trump smiles, stepping back slightly, letting the moment settle. Then he looks back at the cameras. The media can lie, the Democrats can panic, but the numbers do not lie. Biden is failing, and America knows it. If you are seeing the cracks in the Democrat Party just like millions of Americans, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and comment below. Do you think they can recover from this? Trump steps back from the podium for a moment, scanning the crowd. He lets the energy settle just enough before leaning forward, gripping the mic. His voice lowers, but his words hit hard. You know, it is one thing for a party to lose voters. It is another thing when they start turning on each other. A wave of agreement ripples through the stadium. Some in the crowd shake their heads, knowing exactly where this is going. Trump continues, his tone amused but sharp. The Democrats are not just losing support. They are eating their own. They are tearing each other apart. And let me tell you something. It is beautiful to watch. The audience bursts into laughter. Trump smirks, waiting for them to settle down. You have the radical left fighting the establishment, the squad, those real geniuses in Congress attacking their own president. They are saying he is not doing enough, not radical enough. Imagine that. Biden is already destroying the country, and they are standing there saying, no, 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 we need to go faster. He shakes his head, pretending to be confused. Even AOC is looking around like, guys, maybe we should stop destroying the country so fast. Laughter rolls through the stadium. Some people are clapping, others just shaking their heads at the absurdity. Trump raises a hand, signaling them to listen. And here is the best part. The DNC knows Biden cannot win. They know it. They are panicking. But guess what? They have no backup plan. The crowd erupts again, because they know it is true. Trump leans into the mic, voice dripping with sarcasm. You would think they would have someone waiting in the wings, right? Someone strong? Someone competent? He pauses, shaking his head with a grin. Who do they have? Kamala Harris. Kamala, the woman who polls even lower than Biden. The woman who cannot get through a single speech without sounding completely lost. The crowd roars with laughter. Some people are pointing at each other, nodding, because they have seen the same disaster unfold on live television. Trump steps back, hands raised slightly, as if stating the obvious. I mean, think about it. Democrats do not even trust their own vice president. You know how bad it is when they are praying that Biden makes it to the election because they are terrified of what happens if he does not. He lets that one sit for a moment. The energy is shifting. He knows they are with him, and behind closed doors, they are talking about replacing him. You have got strategists, donors, big names in the party whispering about pushing him out before 2024. But it is too late. They are stuck. They cannot swap him out without looking like complete frauds. He chuckles, shaking his head. So now they are just hoping he does not mess up too badly. But let me tell you something. Hoping and praying will not fix this. Disaster. Trump steps forward, his voice steady, controlled. The Democrat Party is not just weak, it is collapsing. And the best part? They are the ones tearing it apart. Trump grips the podium, his face firm, his voice steady. The crowd is locked in, waiting for what comes next. He takes a slow breath, then speaks. You know, there is one thing every American agrees on right now. This economy is a disaster. The crowd erupts. Some people shake their heads, others yell in frustration. Trump lets them vent before raising his hand to quiet them down. Under my administration, we had the strongest economy in American history. Wages were rising. Families were thriving. Gas was $2 a gallon. People were saving money, buying homes, building their futures. Now, it is the exact opposite. He leans into the mic, his voice sharper now. Inflation has wrecked the middle class. Grocery prices are up 40%. People go to the store, pick up a few basic items, and somehow the bill is over $100. Who do you think they blame for that? The crowd shouts back. Biden! Trump nods. Gas prices have skyrocketed. People are paying twice as much just to fill their tanks. But what does Biden say? He tells them, just take the bus. Laughter rolls through the stadium, mixed with frustration. Trump shakes his head. That is the difference between me and them. When gas prices went up under my administration, I fixed it. I made America energy independent. Biden, he begs foreign countries for oil while telling hardworking Americans to suffer. The crowd boos. Trump lets the noise settle before continuing. And here is the worst part. The layoffs are already starting. Big companies are preparing for a recession. Businesses are closing. Families are struggling. This is what happens when Democrats run the economy. He pauses, then tilts his head slightly, his voice dripping with sarcasm. But do not worry. Joe Biden says the economy is strong. The crowd bursts into laughter, some shaking their heads, others calling out in disbelief. Trump leans forward, lowering his voice just enough to pull them in. Really? If the economy is so strong, why? Are people working 2 jobs just to survive? Why are families struggling to afford groceries? Why is rent through the roof? A short pause. Then he delivers the knockout line. The answer is simple, because the people in charge have no idea what they are doing. The crowd cheers, fists in the air. Trump raises a hand, steadying the energy. The Democrats have no plan, they have no answers, and now they have no way out. The American people see the truth, and come election day, they are going to make sure these failures never happen again. Trump stands firm at the podium, gripping both sides as he looks across the roaring crowd. The energy is electric. He waits just long enough for the chants of USA, USA to fill the stadium before raising a hand. The crowd settles, but the excitement lingers. He leans forward, his voice steady and powerful. This is not just another election. This is not just another political shift. This is a total wipeout for the Democrat Party. The crowd erupts again. Trump nods, letting them take it in before he continues. For years, they told you everything was fine. They said the border was secure. They said crime was under control. They said the economy was strong. But the American people know better, because they are the ones living with the consequences. His voice sharpens as he hits the first major point. Let us talk about the border, millions pouring in, drugs, crime, chaos, and guess what? Even blue states are begging me to fix it. A few people in the crowd laugh, shaking their heads. Trump smirks. You have sanctuary cities, cities that said, "We love illegal immigration, we want more of it." Now they are screaming, "No, no, we cannot handle this. Send them somewhere else." The crowd erupts again. Trump lets the noise roll before raising his hand. They are learning the hard way. But let me tell you something. When I am back in the White House, we will put an end to this disaster once and for all. A loud cheer spreads across the stadium. Trump moves to the next issue. And crime. Look at what is happening in Democrat-run cities. You think voters in Chicago are happy? You think the people in New York, in San Francisco, in Philadelphia are happy? A few voices in the crowd shout, "No." Trump nods. Of course not. Because they are watching their cities get destroyed. They cannot walk down the street without looking over their shoulder. Businesses are shutting down. Families are moving out. And the Democrats? They do nothing. The crowd murmurs in agreement. Frustration clear on their faces. Trump points toward the press section, eyes locked on the cameras. And you know it is bad when even CNN has to admit it. The other day, one of their guests said, "We may be looking at a political realignment." He chuckles, shaking his head. Well, guess what? We are not looking at it. We are living it. The stadium erupts once more, thousands of voices cheering. Trump waits, letting the energy build. Then he leans in, voice lower but stronger. On November 5th, we are not just going to win. We are going to send a message. The crowd explodes. "USA! USA!" chants thunder through the air. Trump raises a fist, feeding off the energy. He looks out at the sea of people, nodding once before delivering his final words. They said we could not win in 2016. We did. They said we would never win again. And now, we are going to make history. The cheers are deafening. Trump pauses, letting the moment settle before stepping back, gripping the mic one last time. The Democrat Party? It is over. If this breakdown of the Democrat Party shocked you, leave a like, subscribe, and tell us, what was the moment that made you realize their downfall was coming?